Hello. Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Good evening. Yes.
Hi. Sorry, just had a lot of troubles connecting. Oh, okay. Thank you, Miguel. So, everybody good? Thanks to those I got documents. I should have sent something back to confirm receipt. You all got something from me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. So we'll get right on. Any comments, questions, issues with the chapter relating to the retention schedule preparation? You all have up to chapter 5, right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to, before we basically look at another two chapters, the racket centers, and there's also something about document imaging technologies. I think that was chapter 5. Okay, the record centers, basically that's just for persons who engage a third party vendor to take care of the records for you. So at this time, we don't have a lot of options with regard to that because the market here is rather small. So I think Sunrise pretty much has a monopoly. I noticed there was another company out Blake. I mean, that would be like out Gladstone Road, but it's set up more like storage. It's just like bins as opposed to actual. I guess that particular one that I'm thinking of, I guess would be like a setup for if you wanted a offsite backup or something, because you could utilize their system, computer system, and it stores a limited amount of records. I can't remember the name of that right now. But any of you guys utilize vendor offsite?
We do.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I also wanted to find, Moss, I see you went to check out the website for RMU, the
Yes.
record. Okay, so how did you find it? Because
Well, I signed up, but I
oh,
didn't have the
okay,
opportunity to go on any webinars, anything yet. I just
okay.
signed up today.
Because
So check it out.
okay. Now Miguel, I usually have a problem sharing my screen, but maybe it's enabled now. If it's enabled, I'll try and see if I could go there and give persons pretty much an idea of what's on the page. Okay, anyone have any particular highlights or anything that might have come to your attention between last class and tonight with regard to what we're talking about, records management that has an impact of on the profession. There's something that was in the news that was playing from on the weekend with a certain appointment. I don't know if anyone followed it.
Repeat that for me, Mr. Kablis.
I was asking if there were any highlights or anything anyone wanted to share with regard to any news locally or internationally impacting the profession. I locally, I know there's something that's playing out. They were talking about it a lot on the weekend.
Um, I gotta see if I remember.
Yeah, some new appointments for something that was kind of delayed
Or
and
the Freedom of Information Act. I saw
yes,
that.
sir, yes, sir. So who's the freedom of it and who they appointed as the commissioner?
I'm an old attorney. Hold on. I mean, old.
Anyone can help our good
Help,
friend with a name.
help me out.
Anyone heard the name of that person?
I can't help. I didn't get to watch the news like that this week.
Oh, it's a
I-
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Keith Thompson.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So they actually have office space and they're getting ready to set up. But based on the time frame, it sounds like it may be maybe another 3 months or so.
Are they gonna be autonomous?
That's what they're saying. And he came out with a strong statement to that effect,
Mm-hmm.
advising that this wasn't about any partisan politics,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And he was there to do as mandated.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. But basically, in terms of government information that, doesn't have that confidential status per
Mm-hmm.
se, you know, the citizens would now have an avenue to go for information that they think they need in term and basically when that plays around it, mostly it's the information related to public finance, that type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Yeah, that's of interest. Persons want to know. You you remember during was it the last election when that slogan, but that's where the bad go and get somebody in trouble, right? And everyone was asking, but where the bad money and this money and the next money and all of that. So
Yeah.
basically now it's just even it doesn't only have to be about money. Remember we had issues with regard to remember there was a constituency and even in Freeport, they all had issues with areas where there was environmental issues. I think there was something about a school in a particular area. They say that um, the air quality wasn't good and all that type of thing. Is that
That was a long time ago or recently?
they had an issue a long time that resulted in a lot of demonstration. I think they moved the school. Wasn't that the one with the Catholic
Yeah.
high
So that
school?
I think that was. I think you're talking about Brooke. Help me. I think it's Lewis Yard, and they moved to Mary's, not Marystown, St. Vincent de Paul.
Okay. Yeah, well, they
Yeah.
had some schools that were in areas, so things of that nature where the public feels the need for government to disclose certain things related to when there are issues of that nature. Yeah, freedom of information will provide that avenue. And
Well.
when they talk about that, it's law. So based on what information is deemed accessible for the public,
Mhm.
what will basically be happening is there would be a process, and then the ministry is mandated to reply within a certain period of time.
Okay.
Hence, the link to records management, because if you're not organized and you don't know where to go, what's going to happen? You only have 30 days or so to respond. I don't know
Mhm.
if they're going to go beyond, but by standard, usually places give the institution 30 days. So either you have to reply and tell them you've in terms of a response to say that if the 30 days is up, you have to say something. So you'd have to
Mhm.
respond to either tell them you need additional time or you're investigating or what have you. But it's not just that the person writes in and no response.
Okay.
Definitely, it's mandated by law. It's mandated by law now because, it was passed, and then there were major changes made by the
Mm.
previous government, and now these things are being rolled out.
Okay.
So hence the need to make sure we are getting our house in order, so to speak.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. So y'all all clear with up to chapter 4. You've looked at some of the forms and the types of um listing or checklists that may be involved when you're dealing with um the retention schedules. Everybody clear about the schedule because the retention schedule is one of the tools that we utilize in records management. But first and foremost is our inventory. So before we even get to designing a retention schedule, we must have inventory, the contents, to know what exists. And basically, when you get to making up the retention schedule, based on the information you've got, the only things that would roll up into that retention schedule are those records that have been linked with your functions, your various functions for your institution. Okay, so in terms of record centers, like I said, usually that's where the third party becomes involved. Okay. Now, if your company has the resources and the funds, because a lot of the things that we have to do in relation to keeping our offsite records, keeping our inactive records properly stored and maintained until the time for disposition. um, the record center comes in, and different places may have a different term for it, etc. But it's usually linked to, like I said, a third party provider. So this particular chapter isn't too long. It goes into some of the functions and the features of the record center. It also talks about different shelving, and that's why I say if it's an in-house record center, then that has to be budgeted for because when you look at it, you have to have special equipment. You would also need consistent staff to man the record center. Okay, and then there has to be what we call environmental controls. Okay, you can't, and that's the challenge we have today, where persons don't necessarily think it's important to budget for this type of thing, and so you find where do where do you usually store them if you have to keep them yourself? They're gonna go maybe down in the basement, maybe in some closets or tuck away out of sight rooms, etc. But are those under the proper controls to make sure the records are still maintained? Okay, and then it talks about protection that you need. You need to make sure that that particular facility has good protection from fire, pest. You need to look at the services they provide because when you engage a vendor, it's fine. There are fees, and that's one of the things you wanna be in tune with because if you're gonna engage a vendor, the fees is what tends to sometimes detract from that. You have to pay fees if they're going to come and collect, they're going to store, so you're going to end up having to pay for them to store it. If you're going to ask for additional services, like having them image your documents for you, you're going to pay another cost for that. If at any time you need to retrieve any information from the facility, there's a cost for that as well. So, in deciding to adopt or to take on a vendor to manage your inactive records, you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons. You have to look at internally what would it cost, and then if you're able to facilitate it internally, you just have to make sure it is up to the standard of what is required of maintaining a record center. Okay, and for vendors, if you're selecting a vendor, you would want to make sure your vendor has some type of a certification to deal with managing records. Okay, and there is a particular standard as well for commercial record centers. They do have to follow certain international guidelines and be certified to manage corporate information for other businesses. So this time, I just wanted to point out because you want to make sure
Can
when
I ask
you
a quick question?
yeah, go ahead.
Either, I guess, Miss Tucker or I guess it was Miss Colbrook who said they have offsite.
Hmm.
Question. How is the information accessed? Like, for example, once you, I guess, pack up everything, label it, have your listing of what you're sending there. Say
Hmm.
if you want to access a document, how do you go about it? Do you call them in advance, say, I want to come, they pull it for you, or do you go into the storage facility and pull your own stuff? Because I'm sure that you're not the only records they secure, or you're not the only company they secure items for. How does that process work when you say you want to go to
Okay.
retrieve something?
Now the thing with anyone you see as a vendor for a offsite facility, they have the resources to organize and basically deliver because they're making their money from services.
Okay.
So I've been to Sunrise and I've been to their previous location and their current facilities.
Uh-huh.
Right now, that company actually is in transition. Another company has bought them out,
Oh,
and
okay.
that company isn't a what shall I say? A it's a like it's a company from the U.S. So there's foreign interest now, whereas before it was wholly owned by a Bahamian.
Okay.
But they during the pandemic, that was when they had made their move. So it's a real if you where on Gladstone Road, there's once you come turn on like you're going by that's the name of facility, the pink and white building.
Yeah.
There's a corner directly facing before you get to Nema, as you come off onto Gladstone Road, as you come off that highway,
Trail Road.
what's the name of it?
High
Pine
trail.
Road.
Right, right. Okay. And directly facing that, if you just glance there, you will see like a brand new structure. It's set out because it's kind of tall, but that's the new home of Sunrise Shredding Services. And they have persons there that can take your documents, scan them. They have a client room where if you have to come down and check anything, you can make an appointment, go down. They actually what you're saying, Moss, they have
Hmm.
staff. So you
Okay.
don't go in there and you don't touch anything.
They
They
pull it for
pull
you.
right. And
Okay.
they have a whole database system for specifically designed for this type of thing. So
Okay.
so basically when you sign on with them, they come down, they collect your boxes, they do a scan, so they barcode them. Okay, they do a scan with that'll give it that number that they can track it.
Okay.
And so it goes to their facility. Once it's to their facility, they have another registration process, which basically includes um, I in it's more like an indexing of what's in the box.
Okay.
Okay, so that they would then provide you with a listing. Eventually, that'll identify the amount of boxes they collected from you and what they contained. Those boxes are placed in their storage area, and you can retrieve them as necessary. Like I say, with a phone call.
Okay.
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 But what I was alluding to also is the fact that their services with a cost, you know. So basically, when you engage them, you want to look at what types of service, because I could tell you it's not worth putting a box in the care of a vendor if you're going to be repeatedly having to retrieve, because every time you send for something you have to pay. You see what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Right. You have to pay for that service. So that's why when you are engaging them, that's because you're looking at the cost of retaining it on site. Okay, and retaining it on site is that estimation is done based on what is the cost of your office storage space at this time. So like you could office storage space in like a downtown area or something. It's relatively high as opposed to where Sunrise is located. And then not only that, you're looking at the fact that they can, because that facility is arranged, they have customized shelving, they can store them at a cheaper cost. So they're things you weigh into that decision. Because if you send them off site, okay, and that frees up space for you to put more desk, maybe expand your IT area, etc., that's more beneficial to you. And where they're storing it, off site, the vendor may only be charging you maybe, I think they have monthly rates. So there may be a cost attached per box. Now, what I'll try to probably to share, I'll try and check and give you an idea of what their rates are. But you could also go online and you can look for record center facilities, offsite storage facility fees, and you should get an idea of internationally what it costs. Now, they require certain types of things like standard size boxes because they're stacked so neatly, and they don't have to say, well, oh, this box is coming from Blair, what's the name of your workplace?
UBP.
Okay, this is coming from UBP, and this box is coming from, you're with the co-ops, right, Moss?
Yeah. Yes. But
Okay.
I was just seeing something. They say some of these centers sell containers, but
Hmm.
clients usually obtain them from other sources, provided that they meet the center specifications.
Okay. But
So
now
it's
I
why
know
they're
with them, they would, if they come to you, they would assess.
right.
So,
Right.
or like with us, we use the big banker's box, and
Boxes.
that
Yeah.
for them, that they're not, that's a no-no. So
Oh, they
sometimes
don't take bankers boxes.
they would take them depending on the condition. But
Oh,
how the age of our storage, the boxes weren't really in a controlled temperature environment. So you would find you can tell the age and it's brittle, so they would have to rebox if they came to a facility and the boxes weren't up to standard. So when you look at
okay.
engaging, right, yeah. So to engage that vendor, you have to look at a cost of reboxing. You have to look at the fact that they're coming to pick up
Right.
and right and transport. Okay. Now, the good thing is they do have the resources that'll give you an a true, like I say, index of what's in each box. If you don't have the resources to do that, and then you can make a determination, and then you can build out some type of a plan whereby you realize that if I'm going to store it for a year, it's going to cost me $500. But if I can have my people on a rotation go down, request the once you got that index listing and you look at it, so you discuss and you know which ones that they don't need to be in storage for that long, or what have you. So routinely you make that check with based on the information you would have gathered from the listing they provide you with, and then you can routinely work on purging your boxes out of the system, you know, rather than just letting them sit there. You could have a plan in place, and you don't even have to go, if you're that familiar with the content and the time frames, you basically can call them and authorize what's to be destroyed. But there's a facility there for persons who, for whatever, sometimes persons are under pressure, they have to move and they have to find somewhere to put the box, so they may not have been able to do a thorough assessment. And what happens sometimes when it's moved day or what have you, things get thrown in the box that may not necessarily be records. Okay, and that's why it's important to be able to make sure that from you pack a box, you pack it with some degree of organization, because at the end of the day, you realize you could be paying for a box with a bunch of personal staff items, and you have that sitting up there for years, and you just paying for that.
And they're stuck up.
Yes.
Just had a situation like that. We're doing some destruction. Um, we're doing the destruction of some boxes in a few weeks. I
Mm-hmm.
pulled one today that only had folders in it.
Wow.
So we'd been with Sunrise from 2013
Right. So you've been paying
for a box with
for
just folders.
just, oh my gosh.
That's all. It was empty. It wasn't no records in there.
And that's why, the client, from what I understand with Sunrise, the client facilities use of it is free. You just have to schedule it, you know. So it's very good to, when you're entering into an agreement like that, to make sure you're aware of, what you're entitled to get, and costing. Yes, and you just don't. A lot of people are basically, when it comes to anything to do with papers and stuff like that, it's like out of sight, out of mind. So one inkling. So that's why when you begin anything in the office with relation to cleanup, somebody has to be coordinating that to ensure when you say cleanup, people aren't throwing rackets out, and cleanup is not taking all your junk and putting it in a box to send to storage that your company at the end of the day is going to spend years paying for. But there's their facility, like I say, offers a number of services in addition to just storing the boxes, So you can even sign up for to be a part of their system, their electronic system they have for managing your boxes, or scanning once you agree. Now, it's not cheap, I'm going to tell you that. So basically you would want, that's why I say it takes an organized approach so that you can quantify what you need to capture and avoid the wastage from non-essentials. But it in terms of efficiency, that it's a plus, because what they would do is scan the documents in. Well, if the cost is a factor, the other option is you can scan on demand. So if you realize I have to put these in storage and a number of these will require scanning eventually, or you want to only scan as needed because you know that pretty much a lot of this is going to fall away. But if they call for something before it's time to be disposed of, uh, we can have it scanned in and processed, so you don't have to have all that bulk around you, etc. But it all boils down, like I say, to cost. So, Miss Moss, you're interested in a facility, using a facility?
Well, actually, I don't think we're there yet.
Oh,
But
okay.
like I said, once I'm finished with the course and I
Mm,
it's back to management,
mm,
it will be their decision. But
mm.
oh, gee, sorry, I don't personally think we're there yet. We don't have
Okay.
that high volume.
Oh, that okay.
Yeah,
All right.
we
Okay.
use them for now for shredding,
Right.
but not for storage.
And you could still with the shredding, so your volume isn't that high.
Because
Cause some,
we do the cleanup the
uh-huh.
after the few years we clean
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have that overflow to say, well, hey, we are running out of space, we need to take it to storage, because we do that cleanup of the older files and
Mm-hmm.
only keep the relevant documentation. So far we didn't need offsite storage.
Okay, that's good, and that points out the savings involved in the routine review,
Hmm.
like you do, you
Yeah,
know, because when it gets to a point where you're running out of space and you do decide to engage them, then it's quite costly
yeah,
because of the volume,
yeah, yeah,
and it's you're thinking of them having to send staff on site with a shred truck. So the cost isn't it's really weighing trying to do it within your budget, maybe not letting
okay,
it get too out of control, because that's when you start to feel it, when you have to pay out so much for that big volume of document destruction.
yeah,
Hmm. But they, as a company, I am pretty impressed with them. A local one. A long time ago, I know there was another lady who was just engaged in document imaging, and that would have been more than 20 years ago, and she had a place that that would be where if you not Shirley Street, but up like where that back entrance by somewhere off Camp Road up in the back there. She had a facility where she used to do the imaging for clients. But I haven't heard anything from that in years, so I don't even know if they still exist. Okay, so basically, in terms of the racket center, they also keep tabs on, I guess, usage. Okay, they also look at, prov- well, with them, like I say, it's a service, so it depends on what you need. I did I give you all this address, ironmountain.com. Take note of that, and you can also visit that site. But they're also big on the same thing we're talking about. records storage, and they're like one of the giants in the US. If you check YouTube, you can actually see some of the you could actually get some information on the things they store, and it's an underground cave, but it has ideal conditions and it's been around, and they not only they store not just business records, they store valuables as well. So they have collections that are world renowned. They have tapes of old recordings and movies, etc. But that's also a place where you can go to look at standardized record centers. The fact that the privacy, that they have frameworks around that. So their trucks, they track them, and the same thing with Sunrise. Because you have to have proof that the chain of custody was secure. Yes, we're asking them to come and pick up our records and take them to the center. So that means there should be that link needs to go where it needs to go, the drivers, etc. So they have ways of monitoring to make sure they don't go off the route, etc. Because you have to that's something that's important. So the same way with an armored truck or something, there has to be that security around delivering the records. And usually with Iron Mountain, they're so advanced. Their trucks have all of the essential conditions with respect to controls from temperature, etc. So that's a big player in the field of storage, document storage, and they've been around for a long time. So there are a lot of other companies. I think there's one now that's called Vital Records Control, and I think they're what we would see emerging here soon in terms of the shift over from Sunrise to Vital Records Control. Yeah, and that like I say, that company originates from in the U.S. I think they have pretty much have them all over the U.S. now. So Iron Mountain has been the big player for a while. Huge holdings worldwide. They don't have a presence here in the Bahamas, so if you wanted to engage Iron Mountain, it would mean you having to pretty much ship out. So you see how expensive this could get if you're not using someone locally and you try to engage companies abroad. Now, it may be feasible for some companies without a large volume of information, but you know, it's still that's still involving an additional expense for you to have to ship over to get to another facility. So you have to also look at risk involved as well. So basically, if we look at summary points about the record centers, it talks about the fact that they're specially designed and it's providing a safe, economical way to keep inactive records. Okay, so the same thing I was mentioning in terms of the expensive office space and filing equipment, right? That you would have to manage them if you did it in house. Okay, you wouldn't need that. Okay, and based on your quantity of inactive records, which, as Moss pointed out, they don't have that volume. Okay. But if you have
I
big
have another
volume,
question.
mhm,
Um, I glanced uh, through the summary quickly, but
mhm,
I'm looking at on the other end. Okay, we're
mhm,
paying for this offsite services that
mhm,
they are a reputable company. They have the facilities. They check for pests. They have fire control. Blah blah
mhm,
blah. But
mhm.
legally, how do they sign something? Are these something embedded in the contract that the company signs? Is
Right?
there something
Yeah,
that they guarantee that our information would not be leaked slash accessed and it's
definitely,
really
definitely, they have
confidential?
that, right? They have to have that. That's why I say, in terms of when you're taking them on, you
Yeah.
basically, as a client, you visit
Uh-huh.
the site.
Okay.
You make sure they sign. There's that confidentiality clause in there. Okay. You can
Okay.
also
Okay.
look to see what accreditations they have. In terms
Right.
of international association that they're a member of. They have
Right.
associations for persons that deal with record center. But that definitely, like, let me point out, when you go to Sunrise and those ladies who are responsible for scanning documents, they can't take anything in that room. Their bags, their phones, etc. They have
Right.
lockers.
Okay.
Right. So when they go in there to scan, they go with themselves. I think they may allow them maybe with a snack or something, whatever. But when they go in there, so you go in there, you scan, and they also are under confidentiality agreements.
Okay. Okay. I
Right.
just was checking because if we're paying this amount for that service,
Right.
and especially some of the facilities that use their services, you have to be guaranteed that none of your information is leaked.
Right. And then also there, in terms of for persons utilizing like their electronic services. Okay,
Correct.
people are very funny about where you're storing their data.
Uh-huh.
And you have a lot of people, they're not pretty interested in having data stored in the US. So I know that basically their data is is stored in places like Canada or
Okay.
maybe Switzerland and
Okay.
or maybe somewhere else within the region. But for that particular company there, they don't store anything in the US like that. But
Okay.
that it's all about, making sure when you go to lock in with these persons, you find out all that information because it's important to you as a client, that confidentiality is there and that you have access to the services they agreed to provide, for the price, you know. So you can, the sales pitch is always good. So they're gonna always tell you all that good stuff, and oh yeah, sure, we're gonna do it. But then you still need to look at the fine details, like say you didn't know that you saw the facility, the conference room and everything, and you'd say, oh, so you have access to that. But you have to make sure they say it's free. Maybe some companies, they charge you to use the room, per hour or something like that. But I know with them, their facility, access to the facility requires like an appointment. So the only thing is that you just book a time and you're gonna come down.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah. But that's a definitely a valid point. That's a strong point. That's a key point because that, people are concerned. And then, they have to have insurance and all of that type of thing because that's not their records. That's other person's records, and those records have value to those institutions. So, they have to be well insured, right? Very well
For
insured.
sure.
Oh yeah.
Well, hopefully, like you said, if I mean, I don't know, I mean, you can probably verify when they keep these things for you, do they scan it or you request that and have to pay additional? Because if the actual
Yeah, that's additional. That's,
hard
remember I
copies
say scanning. If
is a part of it, if
right,
you
you
want
have
it,
fees.
if you want it, you just pay
You
for that.
you you negotiate the services you want. Yeah. If
Okay,
you are interested in just putting them in storage and letting them just about like I say, they're inactive. So you're not using them as frequently.
right.
However, there's still some time on the clock for them because just in something may happen. And so based on a particular legislation, it may say 7 years and you're down to year six. Okay. So you may
Uh-huh.
say, it's just feasible for me to pay the storage fee there for that last year and then have them destroy it. So your
Correct.
cost would include your storage fee, and then basically, if there's a shreds fee, that would be included as well.
Okay. But if you have
Yeah.
documents that you want to keep, not just for storage, this is stuff you want to keep future for the future, you can request those
Hmm.
documents to be scanned and stored.
To be scanned,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, they could be scanned.
Okay.
You could do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So like I say, it's layered because depending on what services you need, yeah, that's where your fees come in. And that's why I say be wise and vigilant. Okay. So you go in with a plan, because
Okay.
it's very, just to hear, oh, we could just scan them in for you. And then when you look at the volume you have and what it's going to run into, you may have to do some other options. Even if it's
Right.
a prioritization, you may have to say, well, at this time, what is a priority for us to capture,
Right.
and then take that approach, because you only have so much in the budget. So you can't, you know if you try to go and gobble it up one time, that may not be good for your budget.
Understood.
Yeah. But you just have to weigh the pros and cons because, like I say, if it's going to cost you to maintain it, whether you keep it with you or you send it out. So you look at the two costs involved, because if you keep it, you still have to find staffing to keep it at the standard that's desired. You still have to find the equipment to hold it. Okay. So based on what that'll cost you and what it'll cost you at the storage facility, you make that determination. And when you have multiple vendors offering that service, then you get granular and you look at the different fees they charge and see the best fit for you. Okay, so the building, all of that, they're supposed to be up to certain codes, certain stand. We have hurricanes here. So when you go to look at a building, you want to make sure that building is certified to withstand certain winds. Okay, the building isn't on low-lying ground because what's going to take place? Flooding. So it has good drainage and lighting. There's security in terms of cameras and surveillance because it's your records, and your records contain highly confidential information or valuable information. That persons, if they get their hand on it, they could get some big bucks. So things like that, when you have your own checklist of what you want to look around, and you don't just put your record somewhere and don't go check out the place. You have to visit. That's the only way you'll know if some things are undesirable for you. Okay, so the record center, in addition to paper, they also have, that's why I say look at Iron Mountain. They have storage facilities for electronic type um, record material as well. So those have to be kept at certain temperature, degree, etc. And so they have the facilities for that type of thing. So their clientele is not only limited to persons with documents. Okay, so there's, like we talked about the services. Okay, we also talked about, well, actually, in terms of packaging and labeling and inventorying, they are also done. But like I say, it's all part of services. So you need to make sure you are clear on what you have to pay for, on what you don't have to pay for. And at this level, we're not going into all the other technical stuff with regard to the shelving and stuff like that, although they did mention in here the standard size boxes, cubic feet. Okay, they also showed like a transfer sheet because you're transferring to that institution. So you need to maintain some type of a record of what's being transferred. Okay, but all in all, the record center is an option for managing your inactive records. Any particular point or thing that may want me to shed some more light on? But like I say, for like a summary, a good overview, just check out Iron Mountain site. You'll find some interesting videos on how they service their clients, what types of services they have, and so forth. Okay, so chapter 5 talks about document imaging technologies. Okay, and what all is involved. We hear the term used loosely everyone now, especially since COVID. Everything now is going digital transformation. Y'all don't hear that? Y'all don't hear that term a lot more nowadays.
Yes,
But,
for sure. Virtual.
okay, but the whole thing about that is just because you digitize your document, which means you take it from paper and you put it into an electronic format, doesn't mean you achieve digital transformation. Digital transformation involves much more than just converting a document to an electronic image. Okay? And that's where that comes in, because the key to making sure you have transformed is the process and the workflow. That has to change as well, because you could scan an image and it's in the system. But if you have to go back to do something and you got to print that out and go get a signature and then scan it back in, what? You ain't moved nowhere. So when we hear that term, we're we should be thinking in our minds of a process change as well. And
Let's talk.
a lot of folks, they get frazzled, but change. And when you start talking about things like that, some people, they're not for that. So the whole transformation process involves a lot of components. You got to collaborate, you got to communicate. Go ahead, Blair.
Sorry, I was just gonna add to, you would also have to make sure that the scanner you're using is actually picking up the information. So I know we had a couple of
Hmm.
instances where we scanned stuff, and when we went to pull it up, the page was
Uh-huh.
essentially blank. So you have to invest
Wow.
in good equipment to get the information that you're scanning so that you could actually pull it up and you don't have to go and get the physical document.
you
again.
know, and that's why there's a whole um, number of processes involved when you talk about imaging, because at the beginning, when you're sorting what all you need to capture, you then have to prep those up because you don't want put you need to be able to distinguish one document from another, or you'll be like someone who shall be remain nameless. They decided they were going to take the easy way. So, in this process, there's some Blair, y'all use the separator sheets, right? The document separator sheets, eh?
We used to, but now they have a system where um, you could just pull up the document on the system,
Mm-hmm.
attach it to a person number,
Mm-hmm.
and print the page. So,
Okay.
so it used to be 3 pages. It would be one that tells you what the account is, and
Mm-hmm.
then the second one would tell you what the category of the document would be, and then the third page would be the actual document.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just 2 pages.
Okay. So
Yeah.
for some persons who have to go through, well, technology, like I say, technology is always evolving and changing. And so that's why the onus now, because everyone wants to be in the digital realm, the onus now will definitely be to ensure you manage in terms of not just the controls, but also to ensure the technology is not leaving you behind. So in this particular scenario, they didn't want to do the prep work of having to place a separator sheet between each particular document when they scan that batch, because the scanning was the batch type scanning for collection of documents that weren't current. It wasn't like you were in the process where things coming in and you capture it and then you put it into the workflow. These would have been documents that were not imaged already. So the process involved sorting through, identifying what all needed to be captured, and then to separate one date from another. You had that what they call a separator sheet with a particular barcode instruction on it. You would place that over January 25th. You'd place another one between January 26th, etc. Because these were like applications coming in. And this particular department had a file of documents, but they just felt, oh, it's going to be image. So all I need to do, I just want to capture the file, um, all the contents in that file they felt it was easier to do that by just putting one separator sheet on the top document of the entire file. Okay, so what happens now? It's easy to validate because you're only validating that top page. But when that went into the system, with no delineation for this date, that date, and the next date. So when the user went to search for a particular information, they had to be flipping like you flipping through a book, which is not the intent. The intent is each particular page you should be able to search on. So what happens? That means that particular work, whatever was done in that manner, has to now be rescanned to make it user friendly and more accessible. So, like I said, I think it's much easier now with regard to when you decide to embrace document imaging. But the thing to keep in mind is document imaging isn't transformational. That's just a step, that's just a start. Okay, that image now has to be, you have to determine how that's going to work its way into your processing. It's stored into a particular repository, okay, and you have controls around that. some systems are siloed. And when I say siloed, that means if you're in finance, you have no access to information in HR, although you two work closely together. Okay, so HR information is accessible for those in HR. You have processes where you have to sign off on things. And so basically, that's where it would involve the workflow in terms of routing the work because the actual content itself may it exists in different repositories. Okay, so for this particular section, I think we need to just for a good summary of it, we probably can read up through to I think that's one. It talks about the part about micrographics. Not much emphasis on that because that, although it's to me, I still value micrographics, microfilm, and microfiche because although they are the image itself has been reduced significantly. At the end of the day, if you were to get in a bind and you had to get a light and magnifier or something, you can still actually read the content as opposed to when something shuts down with digital information, you have no means of getting it, you know. But they micrographics was also under technologies involved in imaging. But can we just read that up to that portion of micrographics so we can basically get a at least if there's any further queries with regard to the introduction of the imaging technologies, we can or anything that I may need to get additional information for you on, I can do that. So I just need a volunteer, please, to start us off on chapter 5 with the document imaging technologies, and there are so many different solutions out there. You really have to know what you need and what what your budget would allow you to get. Okay, so actually, anyone looked at chapter 5 yet?
No, not really. Like a scan.
Okay, okay. See, because yeah, we need to because it talks about some important points with regard to when you're imaging. Okay, the options you have. Okay, and that's important in understanding the technology. So Blair, you want you wanna grace us with your lovely voice tonight, please?
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear? Okay. Let me just turn on the light. I getting old. I can't see like I used to.
Girl, don't remind me. I have some glasses to go pick up right now. Be still. I have on glasses and still squinting.
Okay. Just so I'm clear, this is just 121, right? Page 121.
Yes, yes, yes.
Document imaging technologies. As described in the previous chapter, records centers minimize storage costs for inactive records by moving them from expensive office space to more economical off-site locations where they are kept until their retention periods elapse. Digital document imaging and micrographics technologies take a different approach to space management. They create miniaturized images of documents for compact storage in offices or elsewhere. Depending on the application, the source documents may be business correspondence, financial records, technical reports, legal case files, patient records, insurance claim files, customer service records, student records, engineering drawings, maps, or scholarly research materials. These and other documents are scanned or microfilmed every day by government agencies, banks, insurance companies, industrial companies, scientific laboratories, professional services firms, hospitals, schools, libraries, and other organizations. Micrographics technology has been an important component of records management practice for more than half a century. Digital document imaging technology was introduced in the 1980s, and its use initially as a micrographics alternative and subsequently as a solution to record-keeping problems for which micrographics technology was never intended, has increased steadily and significantly since that time. As an alternative to paper documents, both imaging technologies can drastically reduce storage requirements and costs for inactive records that must be kept for long periods of time. When combined with document management software, digital imaging can also improve retrieval of active records. That aspect of digital imaging technology is discussed in Chapter 8. For cost-effective management of inactive records, digital imaging and micrographics technology must be judiciously implemented in the context of a systematic retention program that identifies appropriate storage solutions for specific types of recorded information. A comprehensive records management program will combine digital imaging and micrographics with selective destruction and offsite storage of inactive records. Destruction rather than scanning or microfilming is obviously recommended for obsolete records that have no continuing value for business or scholarly purposes. Offsite storage.
And that's what I was alluding to. That's what I was alluding to in terms of having to. That's why you have to basically do that pruning and prepping process because this here is definitely there's no need for records that have no further value for the business. Or, like I say, it's not research material, because that's what would end up going to the archives. Anything that has research value or historical value. The other information, once there are no more business needs or legal needs or any regulatory requirements, then they should be in a program to routinely dispose of them.
Offsite storage, where available and appropriate, will usually prove more economical than scanning or microfilming for inactive records that are retained for less than 15 years, and in some cases longer. After that time, accumulated annual charges for offsite storage will exceed scanning or microfilming costs. Digital imaging and micrographics technologies produce document images in different ways. One, digital imaging is a computer technology. Digital images are created by scanning paper documents or less commonly by scanning microfilm images. In either case, the scanners are specially designed computer input devices, and the resulting images are digitally recorded on computer storage media, micrographics. Micrographics is a photographic or film-based technology. In the most widely encountered approach, known as a source document microphotography, specially designed cameras equipped with reduced lenses take pictures of paper documents, recording them as miniaturized images or high-resolution photographic film. Alternatively, and less commonly, a variant form of computer and printing technology records. Sorry, I can't, this is very small. Alternatively, and less commonly, a variant form of computer printing technology records, computer generate, sorry, records, records computer generated information in human readable form directly onto microfilm. That method is known as computer output microfilm, COM.
I have a question. Is this still around or it's not widely used as much? Ms. Tucker? Hello?
Sorry.
I was
Yeah,
asking, you were saying micrographic, is it still around? People still use that type of imaging?
We only have the machine. Miss Tucker, you muted.
Wow.
We
I
have the
think
machine, but I don't know where the records are. I think they
from my Ms. Tucker could say, but I think the Registrar General still uses that.
yeah,
What?
that's what I'm
In
saying.
2021?
You still have, yeah, you still have. But guess what? That remember I just said some places they still keep their film. They might have it in electronic, but that's the way they archive their information. Remember, archive is permanent. The challenge we have with digital media, it has to be migrated. We still digital image doesn't last, even paper lasts long than some digital media, and they've been finding that out as we have been migrating into this area. That's why you find now, because everything is moving towards digital, the need for a digital preservation program is key, because you're not going to have the paper to print off anymore. So this whole thing with we talked about with retention, those records that you identify on your retention schedule that have a permanent status and you're moving them into electronic environment, your team also needs to make sure they have in place a digital preservation program, because that means you decide which format you're going to keep them in. And I think standard archival format, they usually use the PDF-A, and that A means archival. So that those images, don't care what system you go to, what you move through, they have to be preserved, because they have been identified as information that's of value permanently. But for some places, like I say, a lot of times people look at the technology and all the bells and whistles. Sometimes, depending on your organization, you may not need something as complex. And for some persons, that's still microfilm. Well, I know if you go in the archives, you'll still see, you still have to do research on some of them stuff using the film. So there are some places that have not abandoned it. The challenge now is because everything um, is so much being projected into digital. You may have trouble finding maybe parts if your machine go bad, or that type of
And
thing.
that's what I was concerned about. If you
Yeah,
have these things, that's eventually things will be obsolete. And if
yeah,
something break down, no one will know where to find parts. Maybe no one will even manufacture parts for it
yeah.
anymore.
And
So,
so you do have people that you do have machines that convert microfilm to digital.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So they, if they decide, that they're gonna convert. But you know, it's funny because sometimes things revolve around, so you don't know. You don't know if it may come back come back big again. That's the tricky thing about technology. They just put a different spin on it. But you can get your microfilm converted to digital.
But you said the microfilm, it just takes pictures, right?
It's picture, right? They're
Yeah.
picture images,
Which,
not
which
digital.
it probably in a way is much safer as well, because safer on the document, because if you're scanning a document, especially if it has to be fed through a feeder, it's possible it could tear or
Hmm.
get destroyed. So I mean, in some cases, the older way is better, but the quicker way,
Nowadays, everybody want that instant. We already get hooked, you know. So
yeah,
you said you go before a computer and that computer taking long to load, you ready to dump that in the trash.
right,
Everybody want just go online and boom, it come up, boom. Ain't nobody have no patience to be waiting for nothing to load long.
right.
So yeah. But places like Iron Mountain, they still have film that people have the storage, and you know there's a lot of stuff behind that that makes it because you have the process where you make that master and nothing else. Not, that ain't a use copy, so you're doing like duplicates. You have that master that you preserve, and then you have a general use copy that users go and access. So that's how you um keep that storage of it so long. You know, you could make copies from that master, and then if anything happens to the duplicate that's being used, you know, you could always get that copy from the master image. But the difference is like the digital, you know, bits and bytes, etc., versus the photographic. That's the difference with those two technologies. Okay, so
I mean, I
we
finished.
yeah. So I think after that, you are finished, right? The
Yeah, I
discussion,
stopped at micrographics.
right? Okay. Because the other section now goes into the preparation of the documents.
Right.
Okay. And so in this session, it talks about like the steps and things like that. Because Blair, like you mentioned, image, you in the process of scanning, and it's a fragile document. And you know, back in the day, they had some onion skin papers and all these other type of different. Okay, so going to scan them through, you know, sometimes you have challenges, and that's why you have, depending on what you're scanning, you have different type models for scanners. So for somebody who's going to be doing something small like checks and stuff like that, that would warrant a different type scanner. Maybe if you have something where you have to be opening it up and spreading out, you may want a flatbed, you know. So it's different types of scanning equipment
I
based
had the
on
yeah,
go
I had
ahead.
I had the experience of what you were talking about with that kind of paper, because it wouldn't feed through the feeder.
And you
And
know what? And so
thankfully, at that, thankfully at that time, we still had a um the flatbed one,
uh-huh.
but now we don't have the flatbed one anymore. We just have the feeder. So
Oh, you
thankfully,
know,
we don't scan all those old things anymore.
but you know too, sometimes you have to literally go and copy it and
Right?
then put it through the scanner.
You have to do.
You know, so when you think about the fact that you want to digitize, that it can prove costly in terms of the paper, because if you have a lot of stuff that you have to go and copy, we ended up with a lot of paper because of the separator sheets and the volume.
Right.
We have open shelf filing. We had that.
Mm.
Okay, because once those things were captured, the whole system was removed and that became workspace. You know, and so that's like one of the benefits of basically when you decide to image. But you had to literally, we repurposed the paper because the document separator sheets, they were, that's all they were used for, to distinguish one document from another. So we had like, we had boxes so that after the exercise was finished based on the volume of files. And so the paper for persons making copies, just for referencing, not copies to go out, they repurpose the paper by using the other side.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so any volunteers
In
to
terms
go
of
through this
in,
part
ter-
about the,
in terms of preparation,
go ahead, Maud.
no, I was just saying, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of preparation, the one headache I notice when I'm doing things now is
Mm-hmm.
paper clips and staples.
Right.
Oh,
If
that's
Right.
you're
Yeah.
not
easy.
That right.
careful,
They have to,
that could destroy
and
your
you know
paper as
what?
well.
Right. Right. And the thing is, those they could mess up a job on the scanner when someone prep it and they didn't prep it properly, because some of them little staples just be a little smallish,
Yeah,
and so they think they pull out all, and some of these, that when they come with 3 and 4 and 5 documents attached, somewhere in the middle, somewhere there, one stapling could get removed, and you and your flow papers going through the scanner, and then the big buzz and the jam, and you got to stop and clear all that out. Sometimes your paper get torn,
yes,
so the prep work really, it's important. People don't like to, and that's the part where they say up front, you got to do all this work to get that desired instant efficiency from now being able to look at the image and call them up easily. But to get there, it's like digging in the mud. You gotta dig around and get all these things out to get that nice finish at the end. Yeah, but definitely, and people have a habit of writing up all over the documents and stuff like that. So sometimes to get a clean copy, you have to tape over certain messages. If you need to do that, certain documents you would need to remove the all the extraneous writings and stuff that may be on it. But in addition to that, since the stickies came, so you would go from maybe a document, and then you could tell the age, because back then maybe it wasn't those stickies, so they was writing up all over. When you get in the stickies age, you get something with sticky here, sticky there, this thing there, and so you got to remove all of those, remove your paper clips, and then if you have holes in your document, like anyone use the treasury tags where they punch the holes. I know in government files, the treasury tags was a staple, because they would use those to string the documents on the file. So when you go to scan, you have to make sure your program can like block that out, or you would be looking at documents with the hole punch up on the side, and that type of thing. So there's a lot of cosmetics that go into actually helping to improve the image as well. So Miss Moss, you wanna share your beautiful document prep and imaging, because we pretty much winding down with this. The next week definitely we have to tackle vital records, because that's a core component of a records management program. Vital records. So if we could get through chapter 5, and you can continue. I mean, you can go through it as well later. But in terms of maybe anything we'd want discussed right now. So document preparation.
I have another question. What about when you're scanning?
Hmm.
Some documents have uh, back and front, if you
Hmm.
understand what I'm saying,
Right.
information back and front, and some
Hmm.
have just on the front.
Hmm.
It's
Scanner
difficult,
settings. Your scanner settings.
which is fine. But then if I have some that I have back and front, and some that are not, I have to select back and front. So it'll scan the plain back of some of the papers. So that's taking up more space unnecessarily, if you understand what I'm saying. If I have an entire file with 10 pages,
Okay.
and 5
Now,
pages are just information on the front, and the other 5 have information on the front and back.
and
I
also
have to select front and back.
Because some scanners, you don't have, so you mean you have to do manual intervention?
Because yeah,
You mean you have to,
if I stick it in and I just press scan, it'll automatically scan single-sided. But I'll have to select
okay,
double-sided.
well, I know the program we use, it detects, you know, so we don't have
single
to,
or
once we
double.
put it in, it detects, and then you can, once you do that final check before you close off the file, you'd pick up if there was anything like that, and you can delete the blank page out. You can delete your blank pages.
Well, I'll have to check my system because that's annoying to me right now when I'm scanning
What type
stuff.
of scanning system you have? What's the name of the system?
So it's a big boy. I can't say it's a scanner, printer, copier, everything in the office. It's a big monster.
Oh, you're using
And
one of those multi
yes,
feature that, so it focuses as your copier. Oh,
yes.
we
We do
talking
everything on that. So I have to go in tomorrow and I'll check for myself to see if it is a system that will detect and just copy, like you're suggesting. But right now, if
I don't know.
select
I don't know if you're
single
gonna
or
get
double
it with that.
side, it will, yeah. I didn't know
Because
that's
that may be because it's a multifunctional device as opposed to dedicated scanners
right.
like a Kofax capture
No,
or
it's
what
not.
have
It's
you.
not a dedicated scanner.
Yeah.
Right.
That may
Okay.
be a little bit
Well,
more tricky.
I'll just check it to be
Yeah,
sure
you could
because that's the thing.
check.
And because of it picks up more space in the system. That's taking up so much more space that is unnecessarily because it's scanning blank pages.
Right. You may need some IT intervention with that because
Yeah.
usually when you go there and that scans and that goes directly to your email box then, and then you
Yeah.
file it.
Yes.
Oh,
And
yeah,
sometimes when I try to email it, it's too big.
yeah,
It's too big because it's scanning blank pages.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay. I'll check with IT to see
You
if
could
some.
check to see, but that scenario is totally different from if you have a dedicated scanner, and then
Okay.
you can like you can have that program to pick up single-sided or double-sided, and and just flow with the process.
Okay. All right.
I didn't catch the last part, Mr. Cup. Ms. Moss is saying the file is too big and she can't email it.
Yes, what happened is she's using a multifunctional device. So that's where they go. They can print their copies. They could also put it on scan. You also get faxes through that too, Moss.
So the device would send the file to the computer.
Yeah.
So when she goes there, now you have to program it so that you have the employees' email addresses in there.
Correct.
Right? And so when she goes to that device, she would then select scan and put her, it's like a flatbed face that you would put it on, right, Moss?
No, it's a feed through.
Oh, it's a feed through.
Yeah, so I can stand up there and do flatbed for 10, 12, 50
No,
pages.
definitely
I feed through. But when it feeds through, if I don't select, if I select double-sided, some of the papers aren't double-sided and it'll still scan the blank sheet.
Oh, we are, well, that's why I say check with IT because they should be able to, something to say that, if nothing, no, because the thing is, our own is so sensitive that if even like a little scratch or a little mark, it'll pick it up as a sheet and scan it. But they do have a process in place whereby, they remove blank sheets. And so only if it comes through like that, where before they close out the batch that they're working on, they would skip through to make sure everything's the right like vertical, no upside down images, etc. And if
Okay.
anything blank does get through, they just right click and delete it. But that's done before you close off the batch. You don't have to really like stop and then switch over and all of that.
Well, Miss
Well, I'll
Tucker,
definitely be checking
go
with
back.
IT tomorrow.
Doesn't
Mhm.
that go back to the system that she's scanning into? Because it doesn't sound like y'all have a dedicated program
That's
that
what that's
goes.
what I was just saying. But I mean, she could
So that
check the IT to see maybe if for the scan profile they
But they
can.
would have to buy the system, right? Because for instance, we scan directly into Documented. So
Hmm.
we have that process as well where we could scan stuff and email it to ourselves, but that's a whole separate system.
Hmm.
But for the client documentation, that doesn't go through the email system.
Hmm.
In fact, the thing is so, like you say, sensitive, it'll flag our head office and say, this person has scanned client information. We need to know what this is about.
Hmm.
But for our system, we scan it directly into a system that attributes it to a client right
Hmm.
away.
Hmm.
So it doesn't have to be emailed. And I don't know, that's probably why.
You mean
I,
with her having the limited functionality
yeah,
to
because
do
what
that?
happens, Miss Moss, after you scan the document, you just put it on a hard drive.
So that's what
no,
she's
it's scanned.
from.
When I scan it, it goes to a what we call a shared drive, and I just go to it, open it, and if I want to email it, I can. But depending on the size of it, it would not attach because it'll say the system will say to me it's too big. So, like I said, I will go to IT tomorrow because most of the times it's only too big because it's scanning those blank sheets. So, if I could remedy that, maybe it will be better for me. But I don't know if the system can do that. I'll have to find out from IT. But you're saying to me because the
No,
system is not dedicated just for scanning, it may not be able to do that.
Yeah, with the systems that scanning you have with a software, you basically that needs something separate because it's these repositories where it's putting information as opposed to you would have to have on a network drive, you would have to have something there to basically store this particular application. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
I will
Blair.
definitely. I'll discuss it with IT and see what they can do or if
Mhm.
something can be done.
yeah, because if it's just sitting on your shared drive
Right.
and you're not doing anything after that, I could see why they wouldn't try and invest in something where I could sit and actually work for y'all. Because I mean, because we have a shared drive as well that we could scan to, but the information doesn't stay on that drive.
Yeah, because basically that's
Yeah,
not considered secure.
yeah, right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So you probably need something more secure that would be able to read the document itself and put it somewhere that you could. I don't know. Like talk to your IT people because that that's yeah.
And that's the thing,
For
with
sure.
records management, you want of the functions that entails it have to be that communication with IT because basically they're trying to um get the solution that you need or that you want. And so it's not for you to know all those technical things that they got to do with the server and all that. All you basically have to understand is that this is your corporate information. You need to be able to process this so that it's remember those tip card principles. And so you basically telling them or asking them, how can I make sure that whatever principle applies to what I'm doing is done in accordance with that particular protocol in your environment. Because the thing is, with it's sometimes that little language thing. They have certain terms and they have certain methods that if you as a records manager aren't communicating, they may overlook, you know. So that it's important to maintain a good relationship there, because
Oh,
even with systems and stuff like that, they're just interested in making sure you get up and running and things are working. So the fact that at the end of the day, this record may be discoverable, record may be needed for much longer than the system itself. So you have to certain things you have to bring to their attention so that they could factor that in when they doing their migrations, when they doing their implementation of a system, when they so it's not that they just do it alone. There should you should be included at the table. Let's put it like that. And so now with what's all happening and everyone trying to get to that phase of being comfortable in the electronic environment, more discussion is beginning to take place.
well, I will be calling them in the morning.
Yeah, just call them to tell them, you're trying to work, and this with the volume of storage being required when all these blanks get in, you need to be able to see how you could resolve that, you
Yes.
know. Yeah,
Mhm.
you know. So ideally, how long they can keep y'all storing those things there. But even on the whole, you know that document imaging takes up a lot of space. Those files are big, right, Brooke?
Look up Blair.
Blair, sorry. B and B. No,
Those
but the files are huge when you imaging, that's what it is, an image. So you're looking at TIFF files. You're not looking at your little regular picture files and stuff like that. So space wise for scanning and imaging, that's a big factor.
Mm.
Okay. So document preparation. Moss, you're gonna go run through that for us, right?
Paper documents can be scanned or microfilmed, uh, are described as source documents in both digital imaging and micrographics implementations. Image production involves source document preparation, followed by scanning or microfilming and inspection of the resulting images with rescanning as necessary. Preparation is the essential first step in creating document images. Its purpose is to make source documents scanner ready or camera ready. That is, to put documents into a condition and sequence appropriate for scanning or microfilming. Well prepared source documents are critical to efficient operation of document scanners and microfilm cameras, effective deployment of scanning and microfilming labor, and consistent production of usable images. While all source documents require some preparation, specific work steps depend on application requirements, film organization, the physical condition, and other attributes of source documents, the type of scanner or microfilm cameras to be used, and other factors. At a minimum, correspondence, memoranda, project reports, case files, and other office records must be removed from file cabinets, folders, or other containers, unfolded if necessary, and stacked neatly in the correct sequence for scanning or microfilming. Some document scanners and microfilm cameras require removal of staples and paper clips from source documents. Even when not required, removable of such fasteners is generally advisable. It improves the productivity of scanner or camera operators and enhances the appearance of document images. Some source documents are more difficult or time consuming to prepare than others. Older office records, for example, may be crowded into boxes that must be retrieved from warehouses, basements, closets, or other storage areas and properly identified prior to scanning. Engineering drawings, architectural plans, maps, charts, and other large documents can be awkward to handle. Often rolled for storage, they must be flattened before scanning or microfilming. Older drawings and maps may be in poor condition from years of repeated reference. Brittle or otherwise fragile documents must be handled carefully. Torn pages must be mended or photocopied prior to scanning or microfilming them. Where significant, post-it notes attached to documents may be taped in place or affixed to separate pages. Small sheets of paper, such as message slips, should likewise be taped to larger pages. Very thin pages may need to be photocopied for scanning or microfilming by the sheet-fed devices described in the next section. For best image quality and operator productivity, books, reports, catalogs, and other bound documents should be unbounded prior to scanning and microfilming. If, at, if that process is impractical or impossible, as with a rare book, for example, specially designed book scanners and cameras are available, but they are expensive. Intended for libraries, and some models feature automatic paper turning. Even then, scanning or microfilming bound volumes requires more time and effort than scanning or microfilming unbound pages. How far are we going?
Just to the end of that. Um, Roll, you could read the imaging part after Moss, please.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
In certain applications, specifically prepared separator sheets must be inserted between documents to identify related groups of pages. This is often the case, for example, with individual patient files and medical record applications, individual students files and education applications, individual case files and legal applications, and books, reports, or other multi-page documents. Sometimes the separator
And
sheet.
this was the example, what I was talking about. Remember, I mentioned about the separator sheets. And
Uh-huh.
so this was basically, yeah, indicating why, and also the fact that you have to basically sometimes have additional things involved to manage the type, like the conditions mentioned earlier, the brittle paper, etc. On your sticky notes, if they are notes that add to the meaning or the content of the document. So yeah, you would have to have a separate sheet, have them applied. You can probably add your little information on the file it came from, if it had a document subject, that type of thing. So these are the things that take up time when you're preparing a document to be imaged.
Sometimes the separator sheets identify double-sided pages or instruct the scanner or camera operator to treat multiple pages as a unit for recording of specific media. Alternatively, divider sheets called targets may contain identifying information to be scanned or microfilmed before the pages to which they pertain. In a medical record application, for example, a target may indicate the name of the patient whose file is being scanned or microfilmed, the date the scanning or microfilming is performed, and the number of pages in the file. Depending on the software utilized, separator pages may contain barcodes that change equipment settings or indicate specific scanner or camera actions without operator intervention.
That's what I was talking about, Moss.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the software to
Mm-hmm.
do it. Okay. All right. Special
Yes.
requirements and precautions aside, preparation of source documents is one of the most time consuming and labor intensive aspects of image production. Unlike other activities described in this chapter, document preparation tasks must be performed manually.
Mm-hmm.
The efficient execution depends on the skill, attentiveness, motivation of workers to whom they are assigned. Clear procedures and appropriate supervision are essential. Even when preparation is limited to removal of staples and paper clips, sustained operator productivity will rarely exceed 1,000 pages per hour for office records in good condition. At that rate, the contents of one file cabinet drawer, approximately 2,500 pages, will require about 2.5 hours of preparation time.
And see, it's good to get that little bit of nugget information when you have to do any proposals or write or do a strategy. This kind of give you an idea of how long it'll take you to deal with your collection.
Yeah. As previously noticed, older source documents may be a more variable condition than newer office records. They consequently take longer to prepare. 750 to 800 pages per hour are realistic productivity expectations for such documents. This preparation of a 1 million page back file or older records packed in boxes will require at least
You see that?
1,250 hours of
Okay.
labor. Wow.
Yeah, so like I say, that's the weeding through the muck and the mire to get to that destination.
Wow. These estimates for preparation effort are based on the assumption that source documents will be scanned and microfilmed without misfile detection, rearrangement, purging of unneeded records, or other evaluation of files or documents for correctness or completeness. If the sequence of pages within a file must be changed, or if files must be checked for misplaced or missing pages prior to scanning or microfilming, preparation time will escalate dramatically.
Okay. So you know it don't be straightforward. So you got to build in a little some other time in there because sometimes you do have to find missing pieces.
Yeah. At first
And
glance,
so you just kind of put those set aside. What you really do is work on your straightforward ones
right.
and anything put aside and probably assign somebody else to, get the thing completed. But
Okay.
the thing you have tried to, you want to maximize your scanner time. So
Yeah.
whatever is easy to process, straightforward, you tackle them. But don't get stuck on something that's taking you around the bush. Once you hit the scanner, you want to hit the scanner and you want the scanner to maximize the time.
I can go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. At first glance, purging files of unneeded records prior to scanning or microfilming may seem advisable. Many files contain multiple copies of documents as well as records with trivial information content. Purging these items can lower image production costs by reducing the number of documents to be scanned or microfilmed. Labor requirements and supply consumption will be correspondingly reduced for image inspection, data entry, and recording. Often, however, purging unneeded records increases preparation time without increasing value. To justify purging, any savings that result from the elimination of unneeded records must exceed the labor costs to identify and remove those records, but the required savings may not be attainable. In many applications, knowledgeable persons must examine source documents individually to determine whether they should be imaged or purged. Document content must be evaluated for relevance and future utility, ideally in conformity with predefined retention guidelines. Even the identification of duplicate records can be complicated by the presence of potentially important annotations on one of the more copies. The evaluation of individual documents is a time-consuming process. This is also a potentially wasteful activity. If a document is evaluated for purging, but retained for scanning or microfilming rather than discarded, nothing is gained. In such situations, the greater preparation labor associated with document evaluation increases total image production costs. Purging of source documents prior to scanning or microfilming should consequently be limited to those files that are known to contain a large percentage of readily identifiable, easily removable duplicates or other unneeded records.
Thank you very much. So, in a nutshell, we pretty much were discussing some of those points earlier, some of the examples from Blair, Miss Moss, and I, in terms of what you're facing when you decide to engage digital scanning. And so, basically, when we talk about uh, this whole imaging exercise, it involves the scanners, and you have different types of settings and resolutions, etc. And you must also bear in mind that that image must be a quality image, because now this is the image that you're going to be relying on for the production of your work. So it has to be a full high quality image. And that's why I say when you deal with imaging files that you need space because they're really large. So you can go ahead, Mr. Roll.
Okay, great. So digital imaging. Document scanners are computer input devices that create digital images of paper documents. The source documents may be typed, printed, handwritten, or hand-drawn. They may contain textual or graphic information in black and white, gray tones, or color. While characteristics and capabilities of specific devices vary, a document scanner divides a page into a grid of small scannable units that are variously called picture elements, pixels, or simply dots. Using optical and photosensitive components, the scanner measures the amount of light reflected by successfully entered pixels within the page. It then generates a corresponding electrical signal that is converted into digital bit patterns. Digital images consist of predetermined sequences of 0 and 1 bits that represent the tonal values of individual pixels. The simplest scanning operations involve office records and engineering drawings that contain dark, usually black, text or line, art on a light, usually white background. Such documents are described as bitonal, bitonal. When digitizing them, document scanners use a single 0 bit or 1 bit to encode each pixel as white or black, depending on the relative lightness or darkness. Multi-bit coding is used to digitize photographs, drawings with shaded areas, and other documents where meaningful grayscales or color content must be accurately reproduced in digitized images. Document scanners. As a computer, pronounce that for me, guys.
That's peripheral. Yeah.
Thank you. As a computer peripheral device, a document scanner is one component of a scanning workstation that also includes a personal computer and software that initiates and controls scanning operations. Depending on the system configuration, digital images may be stored temporarily on a hard drive within the scanning workstation, pending inspection or other action. In most cases, the scanning workstation ultimately transmit digital images to storage devices located elsewhere on a computer network to which the scanning workstation is itself connected. Since the early 1900s, document scanners have improved steadily and significantly in product availability, variety, and functionality. Most manufacturers offer a range of models with different cost performance attributes to address specific customer requirements. You want me to read these, Ms. Tucker?
Well, basically, this is telling you the
The different stuff.
differences. So yeah. So basically, to give an idea in terms of assessing the you could, yeah, go ahead. The sheet feed versus the flatbed. We talked about that earlier. Remember, in terms of what each person had.
Okay. Sheet feed versus flatbed scanners. With sheet feed scanners, pages to be scanned are inserted into a narrow opening and transported across a scanning mechanism that includes optical and photosensitive components. Most models are configured with automatic feeders that can accept stacks of paper. Depending on equipment design, the scan pages are ejected at the top, back, or bottom of the machine. A flatbed scanner, by contrast, features a flat exposure surface on which pages are individually positioned for scanning. Most models feature a glass
Flattened.
tin
Mhm.
on which pages are placed face down. Much less commonly, flatbed scanners may employ an overhead design in which individual pages are positioned face up for digitization by optical and photosensitive components positioned at the top of a vertical column. Compared to flatbed scanning, sheet fed operation is fast and needs higher labor productivity, but flatbed scanners are necessary for bound volumes or fragile documents. For example, flexibility. Some document scanners support both sheet fed and flatbed input methods. An operator can remove or lift the scanner sheet fed feed mechanism to reveal a flat glass surface on which bound volumes or fragile documents can be positioned.
Okay.
So, just before I continue reading, I kind of witnessed this. Me and Brooke witnessed this
Mm-hmm.
firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
That the archiving company, I think we only have one major one over here. It's called RAM, Record Archive and Management.
Okay.
We developed. They ever had a good relationship with us, but
Mm-hmm.
after the storm, they developed a better relationship. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I told you, 10,000 of our files were damaged. And
Mm-hmm.
when I went into the office, I think that was like 2 months ago to check on some old files.
Mm-hmm.
I see that he showed me the scanner he just got, and it's like a
Mm-hmm.
tabletop, like mini type scanner. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
But the
Mm-hmm.
scanner is small, but the quality of the scans
Mm-hmm.
are top notch.
Okay.
And like in the wording just said, it helps with delicate stuff, So some
Right.
stuff are moist and have
Mm-hmm.
tones, and it still
Right.
works. Yeah.
Right. Because so that's a specialized scanner.
But it
Right.
looked so small. It looked like a home scanner.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
They have like it's of many models, and like I tell you, remember earlier from what was read, because you have all these different types of features with documents, and so like with a library, yeah, they
Yeah.
need they have what they call books for their special collections and stuff like that, that they really can't have too much handling. So they
Yeah.
have, yeah, those scanners where the light can just basically they just rest it open and just feed over it and picks up the images.
Yeah. And then some images where the paper is too badly damaged and it can't go to the feeder, he
Mhm.
used the flatbed.
Right.
Yeah.
And rest them on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a good thing to bring it on for me.
Mhm.
Okay, input sizes. All document scanners impose restrictions on the sizes of pages they can accept. Among scanners for office applications, most models can accommodate A3 size pages. That is approximately 11 by 17 inches.
Mhm.
The largest paper size routinely employed for business records. Pages larger than A3 size require a large format scanner. Such devices are principally intended for engineering drawings, architectural schematics, maps, charts, and other large documents.
Right, and they sometimes they stand up. If you Google it, you'll get to see how they have the scanners for those architectural drawings are
Yeah.
built.
A lot of the printing
Yeah,
places in Nassau should have them, but Freeport have the people have them. You see them, they stand up and with the big top.
right,
Mhm.
right. Yeah, so
Um,
it's many different models, so that's
mhm.
why you really have to know your collection in order to. Nothing worse than getting stuck with wrong equipment.
So
And
true.
yeah, can't get to do what you have to do effectively. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Scan and resolution. Resolution is an important quality determinant that denotes the capability to capture fine details in document images. A scanner divides a source document into a grid of pixels, each of which is sampled for its light reflectance characteristics. The scanning resolution denotes the specific pattern and number of pixels sampled during the scanning process. Scanning resolution is usually measured and expressed as the number of pixels or dots per inch or millimeter within a scanned page. 200 dots per inch, DPI, or dots per millimeter, for example. Most scanners support multiple resolutions. Possibilities range from less than 50 dots per inch to more than 1200 dots per inch. For records management work, 200 dots per inch is the minimum
Minimum.
scanning, yes, minimum scanning resolution required for consistently legible reproduction of most office records and engineering drawings. Some government regulations specify a minimum scanning resolution of 300 dpi
And
for
that's us. That's us. We don't go below that.
the thing is, it don't make sense. If you can't see the document, you
That's
might as well
right.
set standards in place.
Blair, what the you know what your scanning resolution set up?
No, I can't remember.
Mm,
It
yeah, but
if
that
we have
I
a
stretch. Huh? Go ahead.
Kodak I something 30. I don't remember. I don't remember that. I probably should look into
That's okay.
that.
Yeah, because when you have to preserve them, like we talking now, digital preservation, you can't scan low resolution because then no digital media isn't very stable.
Right.
And so you definitely won't have that for too long. You don't want to go back to something that you um went and scanned in and know you will need for X number of years, and then when you come back to it, you can't read it.
Yeah.
Mm. So the grayscale and color, and then color takes up more space too.
Grayscale and color scanning. Multi-bit coding is used to capture grayscale or color information. The number of gray shades that a given scanner can reproduce depends on the number of bits used to encode each pixel. 8-bit scanners, the most popular configuration, can differentiate 256 shades of gray. Depending on the model, color, scanners use 24 or 36 bits to encode each pixel, which can reproduce millions of different colors. Scanning speed. A scanner's rated speed is the elapsed time required to convert one page to a digitized image from the moment the page is positioned for scanning until digitization is completed. The rated speed of a given scanner depends on the device's mechanical characteristics, as well as such application-specific factors as digitization mode, scanning resolution, and page size. In their technical specification sheets, manufacturers of document scanners indicate rated speeds in seconds per page, pages per minute, or occasionally inches per second at a specified resolution, typically 200 dots per inch. Mid-range scanners, which are suitable for workgroup or departmental installations, can digitize a letter-sized page in 2 or 3 seconds. High volume scanners, which can digitize a letter sized page in 1.5 seconds or less, are designed for production-intensive work environments, such as document imaging service bureaus and centralized scanning departments within large organizations. Rated speed, however, measures just one part of the scanning process, the time required to sample pixels within a scan page. Scanning throughout, by contrast,
That's
measures the,
throughput. Yeah.
oh, sorry,
Yeah,
scanning
that's the
throughput,
throughput. How, yeah.
scanning throughput, by contrast, measures the total time required to produce a serviceable digitized image from a scanned page. Scanning throughput is affected by various factors, including the scanning workstation's host computer, software characteristics, and operator efficiency. As a general guideline, the attainable and sustainable throughput for a given scanner will be about one half of the rated speed.
Okay, and there's something that was also mentioned by Morse earlier, the next point.
Simplex versus duplex scanners.
Mm-hmm.
Simplex scanners can digitize one side of a page at a time. Double-sided pages must be turned over and repositioned for scanning. Duplex scanners, by contrast, can digitize both sides of a double-sided page at the same time. Such devices typically feature two sets of optical and photosensitive components located on opposite sides of the scanner's paper path. All duplex scanners are sheet-fed in operation. While duplex scanners can optionally operate in the simplex mode, intermingling of single and double-sided pages can pose problems. During document preparation, single and double-sided pages can be grouped for scanning in batches. The appropriate scanning mode can be activated manually or specially coded separator sheets inserted between batches. Alternatively, software can detect and automatically delete blank images produced by duplex scanning of single-sided
And
pages.
that's what you have that too, Blair. The one where you could where it automatically detect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Multifunctional scanners, multifunctional devices, multifunctional scanners. Multifunctional devices combine scanner with printing, copying, and faxing capabilities. They are best suited to low volume installations. A specialized group of multifunctional imaging peripherals combines document scanning with microfilming capabilities. Such devices, which are variously termed scanner filmers or camera scanners, produce both digitized images and photographically reduce digitized images and photographically reduce microfilm images in a single operation. Image inspection. Inspection is necessary to ensure that digital images are sufficiently legible and usable for their intended purposes. Possible problems include excessive page skewing, double feeding, or other page misfeedings. Pages scanned upside down or backwards, pages with folded corners, ob- obliteration of information within pages, insufficient clarity or contrast, blotches or other blemishes, and curved or jagged lines within images. Inspections may encompass all digital images or be limited to a predetermined sample. Careful inspection of all images is critical if paper documents will be discarded following scanning.
Okay, stop right there.
Okay.
Okay. So so you see how complex it is when you have to make decisions about what type of scanner to get and what resolution is needed. All of that to factor into your intended use of the document and all of that would play and factor into determining what type of scanner you would go after. The other, the rest of the chapter basically focuses on the different formats, like I mentioned. The TIFF format is usually the one that the images are. That's like a popular format for storing of the scanned images. Okay, and then you have to look at the stability of the media, and that's what I was mentioning earlier, where it goes in depth in about the actual media, what's the makeup of it, and the pros and cons. Micrographics, as I said earlier, it's still around despite the fact that there's more advance in the digital realm. A lot of persons who still do micrographics, it's a trusted solution for them. That's their backup, that's their archival storage method, a chosen one for them. And then we get into all the types of microfilm cameras and the micro image as well, which we don't have to dwell on that because that's not the way that at least that's not the solution we're particularly interested in, but it's a good to know. Like I said, sometimes depending on the institution, it's not always that they prefer the digital solution based on their strategy. They sometimes would tend to stay with that particular proven solution for them. Some companies still have that little nagging feeling that the digital media is not going to hold up too well. So they prefer the trusted and tried micrographic solutions. So with that said, that pretty much covers us for chapters 4 and 5 with record centers. So like I did earlier, I would basically prepare some high level guide notes, because a lot of it is for informational purposes. Given the fact that as records managers, you're going to be there to provide advice and guidance as they seek to make sure that the image being generated by the organization is properly managed at each of the various stages. So knowing what are the options for my inactive records would imply use of these type of technologies. So thank you so much guys for sticking it out, and I will definitely have your papers back to you by next class.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay,
Good night.
bye.